Hi everyone! Have you ever felt like you are always so close to nailing the perfect shot, but some detail just isn't quite right? Maybe your landscape photos lack sharpness even when conditions look perfect. Or did you choose the wrong aperture, leaving your photo with a weird depth of field? Well, in today's video, we are going to dive into 7 essential tips that will instantly elevate your landscape photography. And here is the best part. Stick around to the end for a special bonus tip that most photographers miss. And trust me, it will make your photos sharper than ever. So let's get started. By the way, if you want more landscape photography tips and tricks, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you are always up to date with the latest content. Okay, tip number 1, f11 for depth of field. When taking landscape photos, we most often want as much of the scene in focus as possible, right? The best aperture for it is f11, which offers a large depth of field, making sure both the foreground and background are sharp. But what makes f11 the ideal choice? It offers a great balance between sharpness and minimizing diffraction, which softens the image. It's generally accepted that lenses perform best around 2 stops above their base aperture. For example, if a lens has a base aperture of f2.8, its sweet spot would be around f5.6. But in terms of depth of field, this aperture is insufficient to ensure sharpness from the tripod to infinity. That's why we choose f11. But why don't we use apertures like f13, 16 or 22? The reason is that diffraction becomes a real problem and the sharpness drops rapidly beyond f11. So remember, f11. Tip number 2, ISO 100. Our goal is to shoot at the camera's base ISO, which is usually 100, but sometimes 64, 50 or 200. Why? Low ISO settings guarantee a clean photo without noise and artifacts, helping us capture maximum details. Since we typically use a tripod for landscape photography, low light and longer exposure times aren't a problem. So remember, base ISO. However, there are exceptions. For instance, if the wind is blowing, we need to raise the ISO by a few EV, even with a tripod. For example, to ISO 400 or 640. Increasing the ISO allows for a shorter shutter speed, reducing the risk of blurring from wind gusts. And one more important point, never turn on auto ISO. Be careful about it. Always set the ISO manually to a specific level. So tip number 3, manual or aperture priority mode. Which mode should we use for landscape photography? Manual or aperture priority? For beginners, aperture priority is fantastic because we can choose the aperture we want, like f11, while the camera adjusts the shutter speed. Great. If we are not satisfied with the shutter speed, we can use exposure compensation. However, aperture priority can be used when we start doing long exposures. Just add ND1000 filter and the exposure time can easily extend to several minutes. In this case, we need to shoot in manual mode and set the camera to bulb mode. Or if we dive into the world of panoramic landscape photography. In this case, aperture priority will not work as each frame must be exposed to the same settings. If we don't want any limitations in our photography, let's learn to shoot in manual mode right from the start. Not sure how? No problem. We have made a video on that topic, including a guide on how to effectively use the histogram. You can find the link below. Tip number 4, white balance. This tip is short and simple, but still very important. Make sure to never set the white balance to automatic on your camera. For single shots, it might not be a big deal, but as soon as we start shooting panoramas, or for example night photography with the northern lights, we need all our photos to have the same white balance. Using automatic white balance can shift the settings so much between shots that it becomes impossible to match photos in editing. We can choose a preset like sunny or cloudy, or set the temperature manually. I personally set my white balance to 5500 Kelvin. The key is that all our photos have the same white balance. Tip number 5, use the self-timer for sharp images. Here is a simple but often overlooked trick. Use the self-timer. You can easily introduce a motion blur from the camera shake by simply pushing the shutter button. Setting a 2-second self-timer eliminates any risk of movement, resulting in a perfectly sharp shot. We can use a remote shutter release, but it's too slow and impractical for daytime shooting. The 2-second self-timer is a perfect, quick and efficient solution that prevents blurry photos. So remember this tip. Tip number 6, focus. Focus is everything in landscape photography. Autofocus works great most of the time, but photographers may use automatic focus point selection or some ineffective focusing mode. Or they set a large focus square in live view, which makes it difficult to know if the autofocus has locked on the intended spot. On the other hand, manual focus gives the full control. What's more, many cameras have a focus peaking feature, which highlights areas that are in focus. I call it a game changer. It ensures we know what will be sharp and what might end up blurred. Tip number 7, RAW versus JPEG, the real difference. To really unlock the full potential of our landscape shots, we need to shoot in RAW. Unlike JPEGs, which compress images, RAW files retain all the data, giving us much more flexibility in editing. We can recover highlights, bring out shadow details, and adjust the white balance without degrading the image quality. Yes, RAW files are bigger, but the edit control is worth it when seeking the perfect shot. So always shoot in RAW. And now bonus tip that can make a huge difference in your photo sharpness. Many cameras and lenses offer built-in vibration reduction or image stabilization, which are great for handheld shots. However, when your camera is on a tripod, these settings can actually introduce tiny movements and cause blur. Be sure to turn off these systems when camera is on a tripod and you will notice sharper results right away. And this is absolutely crucial when using exposure bracketing. Otherwise, the exposures will not align perfectly by a few pixels. This is a pro tip that can seriously elevate our landscape photography. And that's all for today. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more photography content. And let us know in the comments which tip you are going to try next. See you and happy shooting!
By the way, have you heard that you can join us on our exclusive photography expeditions to Lofoten and Iceland? If you want to know more, check the link below.